Israeli soldiers confessing that they indiscriminately slaughter Palestinian civilians. Absolutely sickening details. This was featured in a ITV documentary, Breaking Ranks Inside Israel's War, which was broadcast yesterday. Now, this comes at a time when the BBC, which is the public service broadcaster supposedly, which is obviously the rival or whatever to ITV, when it's being ludicrously accused of anti-Israel bias, when it is riddled, defined by pro-Israel bias in its coverage of Israel and Palestine. It has whitewashed the genocide, indeed suppressed the sort of crimes that this documentary commendably exposes. Now, it is so important we keep talking about Israel's genocide. It hasn't ended, not least given, of course, the slaughter of Palestinians continues, as well as the deliberate and systematic attempt to deprive them of the means of existence. Now, look, we don't need Israeli soldiers to confirm the crimes we know they have done because of the overwhelming deluge of evidence, video evidence, photographic evidence, written evidence, Palestinian testimonies from NGOs to aid agencies, legal experts, the International Criminal Court, which has issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu and his former defense minister for war crimes and crimes against humanity, South Africa's case of genocide at the International Criminal Court, genocidal statements of intent by Israeli leaders and officials, the consensus of genocide scholars, the images of the total annihilation of Gaza. We could go on. What is relevant here is that there should be an undeniable consensus about what the Israeli state, with the weapons and support provided by the West, did and is doing to the Palestinian people. Even Israeli soldiers, that's the point, even Israeli soldiers have confessed what they have done. Now, as the Guardian write-up of the documentary puts it, Israeli soldiers have described a freefall in Gaza and a breakdown in norms and legal constraints, with civilians killed at the whim of individual officers, according to testimony in a TV documentary. If you want to shoot without restraint, you can. That's according to Daniel, a commander of an IDF tank unit. And it goes on, all pointed to the evaporation of the official code of conduct concerning civilians. So all of the testimonies from these soldiers. The soldiers spoke of the IDF's routine use of human shields, which we have overwhelming evidence of. We'll talk about this. About firing with no provocation on civilians, unarmed civilians, trying to get food from the hideously misnamed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which turned aid delivery into a killing field. One soldier, Captain Yotam Vilk, is quoted as saying that in Gaza, you don't need to establish that a target has the means to attack, that they show intent or have the ability to cause harm. He says, it's just a suspicion of walking where it's not allowed. A man aged between 20 and 40. Another anonymous soldier named as Eli says, life and death isn't determined by procedures or opening fire regulations. It's the conscience of the commander on the ground that decides. He adds, if they're walking too fast, they're suspicious. If they're walking too slow, they're suspicious. They're plotting something. If three men are walking and one of them lags behind, it's a 2-to-1 infantry formation. It's a military formation. In one case, he describes an episode where a senior officer ordered a tank to destroy a building in an area which was classified as safe for civilians. A man was standing on the roof hanging laundry, and the officer decided that he was a spotter. He's not a spotter. He's hanging his laundry. You can see that he's hanging laundry. Now, it's not as if this man had binoculars or weapons. The closest military force was 600 to 700 meters away. So unless he had eagle eyes, how could he possibly be a spotter? And the tank fired a shell. The building half collapsed. And the result was many dead and wounded. The documentary finds the link between the genocidal statement of Israeli leaders and the intent of soldiers on the ground, with one tank unit commander declaring in response to declarations that there were no such thing as innocent people in Gaza. You hear that all the time, so you start to believe it. The role of military rabbis is also discussed. In one case, Major Netta Caspin says, one time the brigade rabbi sat down next to me and spent half an hour explaining why we must be just like they were on October 7th, that we must take revenge on all of them, including civilians, that we shouldn't discriminate, and that this is the only way. One rabbi, Avraham Zarbiv, who served in Gaza for 500 days, openly tells the program everything there is one big terrorist infrastructure. He gave religious legitimacy to the mass destruction of neighborhoods in Gaza and also drove the bulldozers himself, boasting the IDF invests hundreds of thousands of shekels to destroy the Gaza Strip, which changed the conduct of an entire army. It's worth noting here, in terms of the rampant Islamophobia, which has been deployed throughout this genocide, of course, not just in this genocide. I mean, you're looking here at the religious justification of genocidal behavior. Just imagine the equivalent. By the way, I'm not saying, and this is very clear, I don't agree with the premise of Islamophobia, and I obviously abhor anti-Semitism. You shouldn't use these hideous, deranged fanatics to smear religions and the people who practice those religions. The vast majority, throughout history, of course, are people who have a faith, which, I'm not a believer, but I respect people of faith, and that's not what drives them to do these things or to do the terrible evil throughout history. It's been used to justify. But the double standards, again, you can see the double standards here. Now, on the question of human shields, which is known unofficially as the Mosquito Protocol, the tank commander says, you send the human shield underground. As he walks down the tunnel, he maps it all for you. He has an iPhone in his vest, and as he walks, it sends back GPS information. The commander saw how it works, and the practice spread like wildfire. After about a week, every company was operating its own Mosquito. I'll come on to this because I'm going to tell you a really, really disturbed story. Now, discussing the supposed food distribution sites, a contractor describes watching the IDF killing unarmed civilians, referring to two young men running to get aid at a distribution site. You could just see two soldiers run after them. They drop onto their knees and they just take two shots, and you could just see two heads snap backwards and just drop. In another case, an IDF tank in the vicinity of a distribution site destroys a normal car, just 4 normal people sat inside it. Around 1,000 Palestinians, almost certainly far more, were mowed down at these death traps masquerading as aid sites. And as The Guardian notes, there's been virtually no disciplinary or legal accountability in Israel. As far as I can tell, other than The Guardian, the only other UK-wide newspaper to cover this is The Independent. Now, the BBC, on the other hand, have kept well away from the confessions of Israeli soldiers, which we have overwhelming evidence about, and like they failed in so many other ways. I mean, so many other ways. Now, back in June, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that Israeli soldiers and officers admitted deliberately shooting at unarmed Palestinians waiting for aid. For example, one said, it's a killing field. Where I was stationed, between 1 and 5 people killed every day. They're treated like a hostile force, no crowd control measures, no tear gas, just live fire with everything imaginable. Heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, mortars. Then once the center opens, the shooting stops and they know they can approach. Our form of communication is gunfire. Another soldier said, we open fire early in the morning if someone tries to get in line from a few hundred meters away, and sometimes we just charge at them from close range. But there's no danger to the forces. According to his testimony, I'm not aware of a single instance of return fire. There's no enemy, no weapons. Another reservist says Gaza doesn't interest anyone anymore. It's become a place with its own set of rules. The loss of human life means nothing. It's not even an unfortunate incident like they used to say. In another Haaretz article last December, Israeli soldiers said there was an invisible line. If anyone crossed it, they were killed. An Israeli officer told them, for the division, the kill zone extends as far as a sniper can see, but the issue goes beyond geography. We're killing civilians there who are then counted as terrorists, he says. The IDF spokesperson's announcements about casualty numbers have turned this into a competition between units. If Division 99 kills 150 people, the next unit aims for 200. Haaretz goes on. Similar incidents continue to surface. An officer in Division 252's command recalls when the IDF spokesperson announced their forces had killed over 200 militants. Standard procedure requires photographing bodies and collecting details when possible and sending evidence to intelligence to verify militant status or at least confirm they were killed by the IDF. Of those 200 casualties, only 10 were confirmed as known Hamas operatives. Yet no one questioned the public announcement about killing hundreds of militants. Now, this just shows again how the official claims by the IDF, by Israel, of the number of Hamas militants killed by the Israeli military are completely bogus. As The Guardian and the Israeli-Palestinian magazine Plus 972 reported earlier this year, the IDF's own figures found that 83% of those they killed were civilians. And then there's this systematic use of human shields. We've constantly heard human shields used by Israel's cheerleaders, including Western media outlets, as a means of defending Israel from charges of indiscriminately slaughtering civilians. The claim is that actually the huge numbers killed is because of Hamas or other militants using human shields. The term is never defined. I mean, it basically means anyone in proximity of anything claimed as a target who gets killed, which is, rather hard, by the way, to sustain the argument that they're whatever human shields are meant to mean, given almost all of Gaza has been wiped from the face of the earth. So what's the argument? That human shields literally in every building. Now, indeed, as an Israeli newspaper reported, at the beginning of the genocide, within the first 24 hours, when the IDF's chief of staff presented 1,500 targets in Gaza to the governing cabinet, Netanyahu erupted in anger, yelling and banging on the table, "Why not 5,000? He scolded the chief of staff. "We don't have 5,000 approved targets," the chief of staff replied. "I'm not interested in targets," Netanyahu retorted. "Take down houses, bomb with everything you have." Not at all relevant, this idea of human shields. What does human shields have to do with that? Netanyahu is literally ordering indiscriminate destruction. It's just it's a lie used to justify genocide. Now, moreover, the IDF and Mossad have their own headquarters in civilian areas surrounded by shopping centres, flats. Why doesn't that qualify as the use of human shields if there's any consistency here at all? But there's not supposed to be consistency. This is just lies in the service of genocide. Now, there's overwhelming evidence of the IDF actually using human shields in the meaningful sense. And I want to give one example reported in Haaretz earlier this year. Let me read this. An IDF officer used an 8-year-old Palestinian man as a human shield to inspect houses in Gaza for booby traps while threatening to blow off his head by tying an IED command wire to his neck, according to a report Saturday by Israeli independent media outlet The Hottest Place in Hell. The man and his wife were later forced to evacuate south, where a different IDF battalion spotted them and shot them both to death. The incident took place in Gaza City in the neighborhood of Zaytun in May. According to soldiers who interviewed for the report, the elderly man was forced to inspect neighborhood houses for booby traps, even though he needed a cane to walk. The soldiers from the Nahal Infantry Brigade spotted the man and his elderly wife in a house in Zaytun. They said that they did not have anywhere to go and that they were not able to evacuate the Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip, one of the soldiers said. The man walked with a cane. And they said they just could not walk all the way there, he added. At that point, the squad's commander decided to leave the woman under supervision of the house, while the man was forced to march in front of the IDF forces with his cane. He entered each house before us so that if there was a booby trap or a terrorist, then the device would be activated by him, not by us, said a soldier who witnessed the incident. The officer tied the ID command wire to the elderly man's neck so that he would not run away, another soldier said. After the man was commanded to inspect houses with a squad for 8 whole hours, the couple was ordered to evacuate south to an area dubbed as a humanitarian zone. However, the soldiers said they didn't update other IDF forces in the vicinity that the couple was about to head south. After 100 meters, the other battalion saw them and shot them on the spot. They died like that on the street, one of the soldiers said. What to even say? No crime has been so documented. No crime has been so confessed to as it actually happened in history. And now we are being gaslit in Britain to believe that a public broadcaster has an anti-Israel bias after its scandalous and systematic failure to report the actual truth and indeed to frame its coverage around Israeli lies. Now, as Palestinians are still being slaughtered, still being tortured, still being kidnapped, still being abused, still being occupied, we will keep telling the truth. Please like and subscribe. Share your thoughts and your comments. Help us continue to offer an alternative to what mainstream media outlets across the board have done at patreon.com/patreon.com/unjoes84. And yes, like, subscribe, leave comments, and share the video. I'll speak to you in a bit.